Mataji, we are live. I've made you host, Mataji. Pranam.
Radha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
We will start with prayer. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshur Unmilitam Ena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Statutam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuttapadakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Sri Rupam Sagrujatam Sagana Raghunatamitam तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च मुखं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम् हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी सुत वृषभानु सुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्ता स्वामिन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Welcome all of you for this today's third session on Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrta. We shall continue with topic on Srila Prabhupada Lilamrta. In first session, we learned about his childhood events, his marriage, how he met his Guru, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, and his initiation, his business, how he started movement called League of Devotees in Jhansi, what led to winding of League of Devotees, and also what circumstances led him to renounce his family and move away as a mendicant. In second session, we covered his interaction with Srimati Sumati Morarji of Scindia Shipping, challenges he faced while arranging his passport, visa, and e-form, his journey and hardship while traveling to America in Yammi Jaladuta ship, his landing in New York, stay in Butler, Philadelphia, with his sponsor Gopal Agarwal and his wife Sally, because they were not comfortable with a saffron-clad Swami in their house. They were concerned. So Mr. Gopal and his wife Sally, they decided to move him to YMCA guest house, where he would stay at night, and during the day he would preach at Agarwal's house. Then, after a month of staying in YMCA, he is moving to New York, staying with Mishra, who was a Mayavadi impersonalist. Then he moved to stay in 501 and then 307 for want of light and fresh air. So this was done last two sessions. Today we shall learn about the various temples he made, how his health deteriorated in New York, how he traveled back to India for treatment, and on getting better, traveling back to America. His battle to get the ISKCON land in Juhu, Mumbai, and finally his departure from this planet. Now we will go ahead. He wanted to provide Radha and Krishna a temple in New York, and not a day went by when he did not work on Krishna's book, Srimad Bhagavatam, and not a day went by when he did not offer food to Krishna and speak on Krishna's philosophy on Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada writes, here I am now sitting in New York, the world's greatest city, such a magnificent city. but my heart is always hankering after that Vrindavana. So I shall be very happy to return to my Vrindavana, that sacred place. But then why are you here? Now, because it is my duty. I have brought some message for you people because I have been ordered by my superior, my spiritual master. Whatever you have learned, you should go to the Western countries and you must distribute this knowledge. So, in spite of all my difficulties, all my inconveniences, I am here because I am obligated to do by the duty. This is from lecture by Srila Prabhupada. Someone someone broke into when he was staying in room number 307 uh, uh, away from Mishra. So Mishra was impersonalist. He was staying for a few days with him. Then he changed it to room number 307 in different apartment. So someone broke into his room while Srila Prabhupada was out and stole his typewriter and tape recorder. When Prabhupada returned to the building, the janitor informed him of the theft. Prabhupada had lost his spirit for living in room 307. What would prevent the thief from stealing again? So later on, he met Harvey Cohen and Bill. They had visited him to relocate downtown and had assured him of a more interested following among the young people there. It had been an attractive proposal and he began to reconsider it. Then Harvey offered Prabhupada his on the studio on the Bowery. So what is Bowery? Bowery is a street and area in the New York, historically noted for its cheap hotels and saloons, and populated by people who were destitute and homeless. Harvey offered his loft for Prabhupada to share with David Allen at the Bowery. David was a young 21-year-old man, 6 feet tall and addicted to drugs. Although Prabhupada and David each had a designated living area in the large loft, the entire place soon became dominated by Srila Prabhupada's preaching activities. Prabhupada and David got on well together, and at first Prabhupada considered David as an aspiring disciple. Of all his friends and admirers, Prabhupada gave his roommate David Allen the most personal attention and training. He felt he was giving David a special chance to become America's first genuine Vaishnava. Prabhupada would eventually return to India and he wanted to take David to Vrindavana. He would show him temple worship and train him for future preaching in West. He had requested Sumati Morarji to provide a free pass for David as well as for himself. At first, David and Swami Prabhupada lived together peacefully in the large hall. The Swamiji working concentratedly on his side of the partition. David, however, continued taking drugs, LSD, amphetamine, etc. And Prabhupada had no choice but to tolerate it. Several times he told David that drugs and hallucinations would not help his spiritual life. But David would look distracted. He was becoming estranged from the Swami. But Prabhupada had a plan to use the loft as a temple, to transform it into New York's first temple of Radha Krishna. And he wanted David's cooperation. Although the neighborhood was one of the most miserable in the world, Prabhupada talked of bringing deities from Jaipur or Vrindavana and starting temple worship, even on the Bowery. He thought David might help. After all, they were roommates. So there could be no question of David's not cooperating. But he would have to give up his bad habits. Prabhupada was trying to help David, But David was too disturbed. He was headed for disaster. And so were Prabhupada's plans for the law. Sometimes, even not under the influence of drug, he would pace around the loft. Other times, he appeared to be deep in thought. One day, on a dose of drugs, LSD, he went completely crazy. So Prabhupada was working peacefully at his typewriter when David freaked out. David started moaning and pacing around the large open area of the loft. Then he began yelling, howling, and running all around. He went back to where the Swami was. Suddenly, Prabhupada found himself face to face, not with David, nice David, whom he was going to take to India to show the Brahmanas in Vrindavana, but a drugged, wild-eyed stranger, a madman. Prabhupada tried to speak to him. What is the matter? But David had nothing to say. There was no particular disagreement, just madness. Prabhupada moved quickly down the 4 flights of stairs. He had not stopped to gather up any of his belongings or even to decide where he would go or whether he would return. There had been no time to consider anything. He had taken quite a shock, and now he was leaving the arena of David's madness. Where was he going? He didn't know. He had to come into the street without knowing where he would go. He wasn't going back to the loft, that was for sure. But where could he go? Before nightfall, he would have to find some place to stay. He decided to phone Karl and ask him to help. Hearing the Swami's voice on the phone, it was an emergency. Karl at once agreed that Prabhupada could move in with him and his wife Eva. Their place was close by, on Center Street, 5 blocks west of Bowery near Chinatown. Karl would be right over. Prabhupada had left his belongings at David's loft and didn't want to go back. So Karl went over to pick up a few essential items. So Prabhupada asked him to leave most of his things, including his books, suitcase, and tape recorder, where they were. Prabhupada began staying with Karl and his wife. Yet for Karl and Eva, Prabhupada's simple presence created difficulty. Almost at once, the situation became intolerable for Eva. She resented the Swami's presence at her home. Prabhupada was not insensitive to the distress his presence was causing to Karl and Eva. He approached Mike, who had a knack of getting things done. They scanned through newspaper advertisement and narrowed down to a storefront for $125 PM rent per month. Then Mr. Gardiner, the owner, revealed a small second-floor apartment just across the rear portico, directly behind the storefront. Another $71 a month, and Prabhupada would live there. So it was time for Prabhupada to shift to his new residence. He, along with others, went to the Bowery to fetch all his belongings. His new address was the 26 2nd Avenue. His new address was earlier a gift shop named Matchless Gift. We shall call our society ISKCON, Prabhupada said, and laughed playfully when he first coined the acronym. He had initiated the legal work of incorporation that spring, while still living on Bowery. But even before its legal beginning, he had been talking about his International Society for Krishna Consciousness. A friend had suggested a title that would sound more familiar to Westerners, that is International Society for God Consciousness. But Prabhupada had insisted Krishna consciousness. God was a vague term. whereas Krishna was exact and scientific. God consciousness was spiritually weaker, less personal. And if Westerners didn't know that Krishna was God, then the International Society for Krishna Consciousness would tell them by spreading his glories even every town and village. On 13 July 1966 in New York City, ISKCON was formally registered by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. So this was the principal place of worship located at 26 Avenue in the city, country, county, and the state of New York. Was the sole headquarters for International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Yet Prabhupada insisted that he was not living at 22nd Avenue, New York City. His vision was transcendental. His Guru Maharaja had gone out from the traditional holy places of spiritual meditation to preach in cities like Calcutta, Bombay, and Delhi. And yet Prabhupada would say that his spiritual master had not really been living in any of those cities, but was always in Vaikuntha, the spiritual world, because of his absorption in devotional service. He said, I have come here in this old age neither for sightseeing nor for any personal interest. It is for the interest of the entire humanity that I am trying to implement the science of Krishna, which will actually make them happy. So it is the duty of every devotee of Lord Krishna to help me by all means. From a letter to Sumati Morarji. Now about initiation. He says to his disciples, I will tell you what is meant by initiation. Initiation means that the spiritual master accepts the student and agrees to take charge. And the student accepts the spiritual master and agrees to worship him as God. He paused. No one spoke. Any questions? He asked. So Howard asked, does it mean we are supposed to accept the spiritual master to be God? That means he is due the same respect. He is due the same respect as God, being God's representative. Prabhupada replied calmly. Howard asked, then he is not God? Prabhupada said, no, God is God. The spiritual master is his representative. Therefore, he is as good as God because he can deliver God to the sincere disciple. Is that clear? It was. During the 2 months at 22nd Avenue, he had achieved what had formerly been only a dream. Prabhupada now had a temple, a duly registered society, full freedom to preach, and a band of initiated disciples. He had received no help from his godbrothers, no big donations from Indian business magnates, and no assistance from the Indian government. But he was finding success in a different way. These were happy days, he said. He had struggled alone for a year, but then Krishna sent me men and money. This was the typical interaction between Prabhupada and his disciples. Someone asked him, what does the chanting produce? The chanting produces chanting, he replied. Just as when you are calling the name of your beloved, if there is someone you love very much, then you want to repeat his name again and again. It is out of love. A man spoke up without raising his hand, but isn't it just a kind of a hypnotism on sound? Like if I chanted Coca-Cola over and over, wouldn't it be the same? Then Prabhupada replied, no. You take any word, repeat it for 10 minutes, and you will feel disgusted. But we chant 24 hours and we don't feel tired. Oh, we feel new energy. The questions seem more relevant today. The guests had all been chanting in the park, and now they were probing philosophically into what they had experienced. Swami's followers marked this as a victory, and they felt some responsibility as hosts and guides for the others. Prabhupada had asked Kirtananda to prepare some prasadam for guests, and soon Kirtananda appeared with small paper cups of sweet rice for everyone. The chanting process is just to cleanse the mind, said Prabhupada. We have so many misunderstandings about ourselves, about this world, about God, and about the relationship between these things. We have so many misgivings. This chanting will help to cleanse the mind. Then you will understand that this chanting is not different from Krishna. When with Brahmananda, Prabhupada discussed the urgent problem of obtaining a permanent visa. Prabhupada had repeatedly extended his visa ever since he had entered the country in 1965. Now, immigration officials denied him any further extensions. He didn't want to leave the US, but the only way he would be able to stay would be to get permanent residency. He had applied, but so far with no success. Your government doesn't want me to stay, he had said. So I may have to go back to India, Prabhupada said. Now let us cover some part with Prabhupada's health issues. During the last week of May, Srila Prabhupada began to feel exhausted. He spoke of heart palpitations, hoping that the symptoms would clear up in a day or two. Kirtanananda requested Prabhupada to rest and see no visitors. But Prabhupada's condition became worse. Kirtanananda said Swamiji began to complain that his left arm wasn't functioning properly, and then he began to develop a twitching in his left side, and his left arm would twitch uncontrollably. It seemed to pain him in some mysterious way, internally or psychologically. Achyutananda said, it was Sunday, 2 days before Memorial Day, and we had arranged a large program in the afternoon in a hall uptown. I went up to get Swamiji. Since all the devotees were ready, Swamiji was lying down and his face was pale. He said, "Feel my heart," and I felt a quivering vibration in his chest. I went down but didn't want to alert everyone and panic them. I went to Kirtanananda and quietly said, the Swamiji is having some kind of mild heart palpitations. And immediately we both went upstairs. Swamiji said, just massage here. So I rubbed him on the chest and he showed me how. So he said, the others go and Achyutananda can stay here. If anything happens, he can call you. So the others went and did the program, and I waited. Once or twice, he called me in and had me quickly rub over his chest. Then he looked up and his color had come back. I was staring with my mouth open, wondering what to do. He looked at me and said, why are you sitting idle? Chant Hare Krishna. During the evening, palpitation again occurred. So I slept in the room next to his. And late at night, he called me in and again had me massaged. Kirtanananda, he said, It was on Tuesday afternoon, Memorial Day, and I was sitting with Swamiji in his room while Kirtana was going on downstairs. The twitching began again. Swamiji's face began to tighten up. His eyes started rolling. Then all of a sudden he threw himself back and I caught him. He was gasping, Hare Krishna. And then everything stopped. I thought it was the last until his breathing started again and with it the chanting also started. But he didn't regain control over his body. Brahmananda said, I was there along with Kirtanananda. It was on Memorial Day weekend. We couldn't understand what was going with the Prabhupada. He couldn't sit up. He was moaning and nobody knew what was happening. We nursed him, myself and Kirtanananda, trying all different things. I had to go out and buy a bedpan for him. Now Prabhupada's left side was paralyzed. He asked that a picture of his spiritual master be put on the wall in front of him, thinking that Prabhupada was preparing to leave his body and wanted to meditate at the last moment on his spiritual master. Achyutananda taped it to the door facing Prabhupada. Devotees entered the front room of the apartment and Prabhupada told them to chant Hare Krishna. Then he told them to pray to Krishna in his form of Narasimhadeva. All his devotees in San Francisco and Montreal were continuously chanting and praying for Prabhupada to recover. Being Memorial Day holiday, his disciple found it hard to get a doctor. And after some search, they got one. He diagnosed that Swamiji had a heart attack and needs immediate hospitalization. During the night, Srila Prabhupada's heart failed him. The next day, he remained in critical condition. He could speak but softly and was too exhausted to converse. Skeptical of the doctors, he diagnosed himself a heart attack affecting part of his brain, thus paralyzing the left side of his body. Massage, he said, was the cure. On the morning of June 1st, other disciples joined Kirtanananda in Prabhupada's room and by taking shifts were able to give Prabhupada a constant massage. They took turns massaging his head, chest and leg as he directed. This simple act drew each of them into an intimate relationship with him, Prabhupada. When Srila Prabhupada mentioned his preference for the Ayurvedic medical treatments available in India, some of the devotees suggested they bring a doctor from India. After considering the expense, Prabhupada decided to send a letter first. Unable to sit up or write, he slowly dictated a letter addressed to Sri Krishna Pandit, who had given him quarters for several years in his temple in Delhi. He wrote all the symptoms of his ailments in detail to Sri Krishna Pandit and gives him two options. Two things are to be done if it is possible. To send me a proper medicines and directions, that will be nice. But if I require to return, that also I can do. Please try to reply as soon as possible in English because my students cannot read Hindi. So long as I am in bed, it is not possible to read letters. You can read this letter very urgently. Consult necessary physicians and let me know what I am to do. In Mathura, there are undoubtedly many Ayurvedic physicians. I would have returned to India immediately, but the doctors say it is risky. If need be, I shall return as soon as I get strength to take the strain of the journey. Srila Prabhupada, with this slight improvement in health, expressed more disapproval of being in the hands of hospital personnel. They were not able to do anything, he said. Krishna was in control. If Krishna wants to kill you, then no one can save you. But if Krishna wants to save you, then no one can kill you. Srila Prabhupada was eager to leave the hospital. For several days he had wanted to go. They are simply sticking needles, he complained. And each day was putting his society into further debt. The devotees had rented a small seaside house in Long Branch, uh, New Jersey, where Prabhupada could go to recuperate. Kirtanananda, they decided would be Prabhupada's cook, and Gaurasundara and his wife Govinda Dasi were arriving from San Francisco to do the housekeeping and help. But the doctor wanted Prabhupada to stay for another brainwave test and more observations. The doctors and staff were insisting on carrying out more tests on Prabhupada, like X-ray, etc. But Prabhupada had enough of it and insisted of leaving the hospital. So, against the wishes of the doctors and hospital, he and his disciple left the hospital and stayed at the small seaside rented place. Srila Prabhupada talked of going to India not only for his health. He told Kirtanananda and Gaurasundara he wanted to start in Vrindavana an American house, a place where his American disciple could learn Vedic culture to help them preach all over the world. He also said he wanted to make some of his disciples, Kirtanananda, Brahmananda, Hayagriva, some of the disciples, into sannyasis, and he would do that also in India. His real work, however, was in America. If he could just regain his health. Prabhupada stayed in Long Branch for 3 weeks, but when Sri Krishna Pandit wrote saying that he couldn't arrange for an Ayurvedic doctor to come to America, Prabhupada began to think more seriously about going back to India. In India, he could get sunshine and Ayurvedic treatment, but his plan would vary from one day to another. San Francisco, Montreal, India, New York, like this. So he told Kirtanananda to inform the devotees in San Francisco that if they held a Ratha Yatra festival, he would come. At the end of June, he returned to 26 Second Avenue, New York, and went to the hospital for checkup. The doctor was surprised at Prabhupada's recovery and had no objection to his flying to San Francisco. So, in search of sunny skies and eager to guide his followers in performing the first Ratha Yatra, Prabhupada had airline tickets booked for himself and Kirtanananda to San Francisco, New Jagannath Puri. He stays in San Francisco with his devotees who adore him and are jubilant that he has come back to them again. That night, Srila Prabhupada felt pain in his heart and couldn't sleep. And he didn't rise early for translating. At 5 a.m., Kirtanananda came in and opened the window slightly so that Prabhupada could receive the soft ocean breeze. Prabhupada sat up in his bed chanting his japa and gazing at the feet of Lord Krishna and Srimati Radharani. Srila Prabhupada still talked of going to India. He had virtually made up his mind to go. The question now was when and whether by the western route via Japan or the eastern route via New York. The grey skies and unseasonably cool temperatures of Stinson Beach were a disappointment. His health was still poor. He even spoke of dying. It didn't matter whether he died in America or in Vrindavana, he said. If a Vaishnava dies in Vrindavana, the land where Krishna appeared, he is assured of joining Krishna in the spiritual world. To be always absorbed in thinking of Krishna was also Vrindavan. So, if he were to pass away while preaching Krishna consciousness anywhere in the world, certainly he would still attain to the eternal Vrindavana in the spiritual sky. Prabhupada told Kirtanananda he had definitely decided to go to India via New York as soon as possible. Kirtanananda packed Swamiji's things and drove Swamiji down to San Francisco to spend the night at the temple. They would leave the next morning. The temple and even Prabhupada's apartment were very hectic that night, with many devotees and guests wanting to see Prabhupada and dozens of people wanting initiation. The next morning, Prabhupada had to leave his affectionate followers. Several cars filled with the devotees accompanied him to the San Francisco airport. There were a lot of people at Delhi airport who had come to receive their near and dear ones, but no one was there for Prabhupada. It was certainly different from the recent tearful airport scenes where Prabhupada had been with his loved ones. Now, instead of being surrounded by loving disciples, Prabhupada was besieged by taxi drivers and porters wanting to carry his luggage for a fee. They went to Chippewada and stayed at the Radha Krishna temple. This is the room where I compiled Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada told Kirtanananda, I slept here and over here was my cooker and my typewriter. I would sleep and type and cook and type. He was telling like this to Kirtanananda. So Kirtanananda was shocked to think of Prabhupada living here in such a poor, humble place. It wasn't even clean. Then two Ayurvedic doctors came. They both agreed that the trouble was Swamiji's heart, but that the danger was now past over. They gave him medicines and advised him to keep to a regulated schedule of eating, resting, and working. Sri Krishna Pandit came by to visit, uh, to sit and converse. And Prabhupada told him of his success in America and of all the young devotees in New York and San Francisco. Srila Prabhupada still had issues with his health and needed regular massage and care, which Kirtanananda was giving, with regular medication, massages, rest, and the heat of Vrindavana. Prabhupada felt himself recovering. By mid-September, he declared himself 90% fit to return to the US states. He predicted that he would be back there by the end of October. Prabhupada and Kirtanananda Swami and Achyutananda returned to the Chippewada temple in Delhi. Achyutananda had joined them from USA by then. For Prabhupada's two devotees, life at the Chippewada temple was hard. Delhi was blazing hot and lacked the charm of Vrindavana. Meanwhile, at Boston and New Mexico, his disciples were making new temples in rented place and writing to Swamiji about the progress. Srila Prabhupada had wanted to return to US as permanent resident, but his students in America hadn't been able to get the necessary clearance from the US Immigration Department. Rather than wait indefinitely for US permanent residency, Prabhupada decided to apply for a visitor's visa. He went with Achyutananda to the US consulate on Harrington Road. Sitting before the secretary of the consulate, Prabhupada looked small and humble. I want a visa to see my students in America, he said softly. Do you have any letters? Secretary asked. Achyutananda handed over the letters from temples. The secretary reviewed them and quickly gave Prabhupada a 4-month visitor visa. While leaving the building, Prabhupada remarked, I will just get anything. and then it can be extended. So on October 24, Prabhupada traveled with Achyutananda and Ramanuja to Navadvipa. In May, a few months after leaving Los Angeles, Swamiji paid a first visit to his ISKCON center in Boston. It was in Swamiji's room one day in Boston that he accepted the name Prabhupada. While his secretary was taking dictation, Prabhupada mentioned that the affix G was a third-class address. So then, what do we call you, Swamiji? What should we call you? They asked him. A spiritual master, he said, a spiritual master, Swamiji replied, is usually addressed by names like Gurudev, Vishnupada, or Prabhupada. May we call you Prabhupada? They asked. Then Prabhupada said, yes. Prabhupada replied, yes, you can call Prabhupada. At first, the disciples were reluctant to give up the long cherished Swamiji, which for them was a name of affection. But Swamiji soon disappeared and he was affectionately referred to as Prabhupada. Now, three married couples, Mukunda and Janaki, Shyamsundara and Malati, with their infant daughter Saraswati, and Gurudasa and Yamuna, arrived in Montreal, eager to travel to London. These three couples had begun the temple in San Francisco, where they had close association with Srila Prabhupada. They had helped Prabhupada introduce Kirtana, Prasadam, and Rathayatra among the peace of Hyde Ashbury. Now they were eager to help him introduce Krishna consciousness in London. So Prabhupada asked these three couples to remain with him in Montreal for a week or two so that he could train them to perform Kirtan expertly. Chanting Hare Krishna was not a theatrical performance but an act of devotion properly conducted by pure devotees. Somewhere during his travels, while he was in Los Angeles in July 1970, he revealed his plan for establishing a governing body commission, the GBC, to manage ISKCON. So he then dictated letters clearly mentioning how he wants ISKCON to function in his absence. He lists the names of 12 persons who shall form the GBC. Again, he drafted another significant statement naming several of his disciples as trustees of his BBT, Bhakti Vedanta Book Trust. The Bhakti Vedanta Book Trust account will be used to publish my books and literature and to establish temples throughout the world. Especially 3 temples are to be established, one each in Mayapur, Vrindavan, and Jagannath Puri. He also initiated the ISKCON Life membership program, where a membership fee was 1,111, would entitle the member to many benefits, such as copies of Srila Prabhupada's book and free accommodation in ISKCON centers around the world. And his enthusiasm to open the temples all over the world and preach took him on extensive world tours, circling the globe 14 times. Overcoming many challenges, his bodily challenges being one of them. Wherever he went, the reception and response to Hare Krishna movement and lectures was phenomenal. Now he wanted to establish temple in Juhu. So in November 1971, the Mumbai devotees were living at the Akash Ganga address, which was 2 apartments on the 7th floor of a building in heart of Bombay. But Prabhupada was not satisfied with this. He wanted land in Bombay to build on and to expand. He was determined. So instead of usual morning walks, he would take long rides in his car to observe various parts of the city. Because many of the ISKCON life members lived in aristocratic Malabar Hill, His disciples thought it a good place for a temple. But for one reason or other, he judged them all unacceptable. Then in November, Mr. Yen offered to sell ISKCON 5 acres in Juhu, 5 acres land in Juhu, practically on the shore of a Arabian Sea. Prabhupada had trouble ever since he had first tried to purchase the land from Mr. Yen in 1971, and obstacles had plagued all his attempts for permission to build. This long for acquisition of the ISKCON land in Juhu was a long drawn battle. Srila Prabhupada started his morning walk before dawn, and Prabhupada liked to walk at this time of the morning, and weather permitting, he would do so no matter where he was in the world. Juhu Beach, however, was one of his favorite places of walk. Around September 6, 1977, in his frail condition, he toured London, and the devotees there were shocked to see him in this bodily condition, weak and frail, and it was a heart-rending experience for them. From London, Prabhupada was looking to visit America after Janmashtami, as he wanted to introduce Varnashrama at the ISKCON Pennsylvania farmhouse. But after Prabhupada was in London for 2 weeks, on the day of his appearance day celebration, his health suddenly became worse and his travel plan changed. Instead of going to USA, he now requested that he be taken to India and, and spoke of Bombay. If I leave a few more days, he said, let me see the opening of Bombay temple. We can wait here and then fly to Bombay. I have worked so hard for it. If I see the opening and then die, it will be very peaceful death. And if I leave, then I can come back here. Srila Prabhupada went to Bombay, but his health was not improving, and finally he announced that he would rather return to Krishna Balrama temple in Vrindavan than continue staying in such critical condition in Bombay. On November 14, 1977, at 7:30 p.m., in his room at the Krishna Balram Mandir in Vrindavana, Srila Prabhupada gave his final instruction by leaving this mortal world and going back to Godhead. His departure was exemplary because his whole life was exemplary. His departure marked the completion of a lifetime of pure devotional service to Krishna. A few days before the end, Srila Prabhupada had said he was instructing as far as he could. And his secretary had added, "You are the inspiration." Yes, Srila Prabhupada had replied, "That I shall do until the last breathing." Prabhupada's last breathing was glorious, not because of any last-minute mystical demonstration, but because Srila Prabhupada remained in perfect Krishna consciousness. At the time of his departure, he was teaching how to die by always depending on Krishna. Prabhupada's passing away was peaceful. Srila Prabhupada's departure was also perfect because he was chanting and hearing the holy names of God. Srila Prabhupada's life had been dedicated to spreading the holy name to every town and village, and for a month he had been surrounding himself with the holy name. For his passing away, he especially wanted to fill the room with devotees chanting Hare Krishna, and Krishna fulfilled that wish. Srila Prabhupada therefore departed under the most favorable circumstances possible. In the most sacred place, Vrindavana, surrounded by Vaishnavas chanting the holy name. An ideal spiritual teacher, Acharya, always acts in such a way that others may follow his example. As Srimad Bhagavatam states, these great souls who cross over the ocean of birth and death by taking shelter of the boat of the lotus feet of Krishna miraculously leave the boat on this side for others to use. And Srila Prabhupada's disappearance, by its perfect example, affords all conditioned souls the means of meeting the greatest of all dangers. An auspicious death is not merely a matter of psychological adjustment, so that one may die without regret or without becoming unduly upset. The real point is that at the time of death, the soul must leave the body and take his next birth. Only the Krishna conscious soul can leave this world of birth and death and attain an eternal blissful life in the spiritual world. Therefore, one's life is tested at the death. Over the last months of his life in this world, Srila Prabhupada taught how it is possible to meet death step by step in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada came into this world on Krishna's request to teach us how to live a pure life of Krishna consciousness. And that includes how to finally pass away from this world to attain eternal life. Srila Prabhupada underwent death in a way that was perfect and glorious, and at the same time in a way which we can all follow. When we have to go, we can cling to the memory of how a great soul left his body, always thinking of Krishna, surrounding himself with medicines of chanting Hare Krishna, always desiring to hear about Krishna and practicing detachment from the misery of the material conditions. This last lesson was one of the most wonderful and important instructions Srila Prabhupada gave us. He taught by his life, by his books, and at the end by his dying. Education in how to die is meant especially for the human being. An animal dies and human being also dies. But a human being is supposed to understand the process of going back to the spiritual world at the time of death. Remaining always fixed and undisturbed in Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada expertly taught the process. His passing away, therefore, was a perfect lesson and one that can be faithfully followed. On November 14, 1977, as the powerful news spread around the world, those who knew and loved Srila Prabhupada were gripped by a fearful, unrestricted grief. They saw everything around them in the overwhelming atmosphere of separation from Srila Prabhupada. They turned for solace to Srila Prabhupada's books. However, the disciples and spiritual master are never separated because the spiritual master always keeps company with the disciples as long as the disciple follows the instructions of the spiritual master. This is called the association of Vani. Physical presence is called Vapu. As long as the spiritual master is physically present, disciples should serve the physical body of the spiritual master. And when the spiritual master is no longer physically existing, the disciple should serve the instructions of the spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada's disciples were already carrying out his instructions, but now they would have to do so without the vapu, without the opportunity of regularly seeing and being with him. At first, this was very difficult for them to face, but those who were sincere soon realized that Srila Prabhupada had, upon his departure, given them the greatest gift of all, service in separation, Pralamba Bhav. So this ends Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrta. In this, any questions?
Actually, there is no questions, Mataji. Basically, we could see the amount of efforts at that age, what Prabhupada had done,
Yes.
to spread Krishna consciousness, and we are still at the bottommost level, I think.
Yes,
Thank
Prabhu.
you, Mataji. And like it is so inspiring, Mataji, that now I understand when we are discussing today, even in the class, we are discussing that whenever we're learning about him or we're talking about him, it actually highly elevating the essence of bhakti in us also. It is very highly inspiring, Mataji.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
Mataji.
so we actually cut down something because we had to fit everything in 1 hour. There's something else also there. He tried to get help from a lot of people who immediately turned him down. Of Parampat Singhania of the JK group, Raymond's group, he contacted him for some money, and initially he showed some interest. Later on, he also went back on his word. Then he tried to contact his god brothers, trying to ask them for some help, because the government of India was asking him that they cannot send money, so much of money, without some help. So he tried to contact the then Prime Minister, who again wrote a very nice letter, but politely turning down any help given. So he struggled a lot to even build a small temple, but ultimately he did. He didn't have to do all this because he himself knew the science of going back to Godhead. But he did all of this just to so that people like us can benefit, and which is something a very big sacrifice.
And even when building Bombay temple, he had lots of struggle. That Mr. Ryan troubled him a lot. So that is given in the book elaborately. So you read book also, so you will come to know more about his more struggle in building the temples.
In fact, it is said that the efforts were much higher in Bombay than in any other place. That is what Prabhupada's book says, actually.
So this person, Mr. Yan, I just referred there. He was ex-mayor of Bombay. I don't know who is he. What he used to do is he used to always promise them, yes, I'm giving. He used to take money from them, but still not give. 12 lakh rupees they paid, which was a big amount in 1971 and 75. Around that time, 12 lakhs they paid. He still kept asking more and more money. So whenever Prabhupada used to meet him, he used to talk nicely and promise. But the moment Srila Prabhupada used to go back, he was not what to say, meeting the requirement or fulfilling the promise that he used to make. So it went on, dragged on for long, and it went into court case also. Finally, that Mr. Yen died of heart attack. That didn't end the story. His wife, Mrs. Yen, continued the legal proceedings, and she even it dragged on for long, and ultimately he called her once, and then insisted her on to closing this case. She did it reluctantly, but ultimately she had to, because she was also getting old. So a lot of challenges that he faced in doing this, but nevertheless he didn't leave. So today, if at all you have been to Jew temple, that's where we stay. I think it's really magnificent. The aura and of Jew temple is very different from others. And the Janmashtami celebrations in Jew temple, to the best of my knowledge, is the best.
Yes,
Tomorrow,
Prabhuji, I agree with you, Prabhu. Actually, it was in 1989 I went to that temple, Prabhu. In fact, it was
we keep going there.
like,
yeah, very nice.
And it was one of the most beautiful temples ever. There, really beautiful.
You're from Bombay?
No, I lived in Bombay for some time, sir, when I was in the Navy.
Yeah, okay. So tomorrow, if at all you're interested, we can take some question answer session if you're interested. Otherwise, we can have off. Yeah. What do you all suggest? Question answer session on Prabhupada Lilamrta book. So what all question answers they'll ask in the interview also, we can take it up. In case you're interested, we can same time we can spend 1 hour and do that. Are you all interested?
Yes, sir. I'm ready.
Prabhu. Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes,
Okay, so
we can go with the question answers, interview question answers also on this. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
It will
So
become a model kind of.
Tomorrow when we take up the class, we'll take interview question answers also. So it will help you we will do in a chronological order itself. So
Yes.
if they ask you about the book, you can answer in the same chronology order that we take up tomorrow.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Hare Bol, Hare Krishna. Thank
Prabhu,
you.
I did post that Prabhupada Lilamrta as it is. Is that book what we are referring to exactly?
Yeah, actually, the real volume is of two books.
Two
7
books.
volumes.
Yes.
Yeah, 7 volumes are there. If you want, I just share it here. I'll just show you. If you go to
You can just tell me the website name, Prabhu. I'll just download from there.
yeah, see, if you go into Veda base and if you search for Prabhupada Lilamrta, it will throw you all the books that are
Available. Yeah. Okay.
No, if you are buying, I think from Mangalore, you can order ISKCON. I mean,
it's
on the-
available. Yeah, it's available.
yeah, it will be available.
It
They
is
can
available
send it.
in English. Yeah, I
Yeah.
heard from Dharnishwari Mataji actually.
Yes, they can send it to you. They can ship it to you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Prabhu, the book that you've shared on the group, is it two volumes?
no, this is the
No, it's only one.
this single volume.
Okay.
Is condensed
It
one.
is the condensed version. Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Exactly, Prabhu. It is the condensed version.
Can you see the book?
Yes.
Yes,
sir.
Prabhuji. Yes.
So actually, this is a condensed book. This is a same author, Sat Swarupa Das Goswami.
Correct.
He was sitting in the same Philadelphia farmhouse in Gita Nagari in USA when he wrote this book. So there's a small apartment or small housing where he was sitting and writing the book. And I had the good fortune of visiting that place last year when we went to meet Premageshwari Mataji in Gita Nagari.
Oh,
And we stayed next room of that room where Srila Das was writing he wrote that book in that room. So we stayed next to that room.
oh. Correct.
Fortunate.
All associated.
So tomorrow, same time we meet 7:30. We'll take up some questions. We have listed down the questions and we'll take up those answers. So it could be more interactive. It will help you in not only understanding, it will help you in answering the interview. But that's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to understand our spiritual master.
Responsibilities and roles. Yeah, correct. Roles and responsibilities.
Yeah, roles and responsibilities. Correct.
Of what Prabhupada had done, we have to kind of endeavor to repeat. We cannot match him, or we cannot try and even match him. Come to that, we will endeavor. We will try. That's it.
Correct. Nobody will even think of leaving the shore at age 69 and do something in what he has done.
Phenomenal, sir.
Yeah, to stay in a Bowery, it's very scary to even enter the Bowery lanes and to stay there and write books and preach. It's unimaginable.
All around him were drug addicts and they were not in proper senses.
All gypsies, yeah, all gypsies were around. Yeah, correct.
And then did all this work.
I mean, living with them, sharing a room in that situation.
Correct.
That is.
No, in fact, God has been merciful. In fact, like he is kind of incarnation to that.
Correct.
The avatar or whatever we can say, it was miraculous, and we really have to
Instrument in the
learn. Yeah, correct.
Today I was trying to edit some portion of this because actually last time I took 5 classes of it. So this time I had to make it into 3 because running short of time.
yeah.
There is one place called Tompkinson Square in New York. That's the place he started doing his kirtans and where he attracted other people. So that name also you should know, which we'll discuss tomorrow. Tompkinson Square.
Tompkinson Square, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just have to.
So he started kirtan there, and all people started, even drug addicts and all. No, they were all coming and.
All gypsies, maximum gypsies were there.
Okay, so tomorrow 7:30 we meet. We'll announce it in the group. You can join at 7:30 to understand the question answer session. Okay.
Hare Bol, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Kiti Mataji, you can stop the live.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thanks a lot.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Pranam.
Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Pranam.
Namo Namaha, Hare
Hare Krishna to everyone.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.